So, okay, Trey. Seems a lot of people think all that realtors do when they help buyers is unlock doors and show houses, but we know that's not true, huh?
Yeah, we do, and it seems that way because very often the first phone call you get is somebody that wants to see a house, or somebody called and tell you that they're ready to list their house, but that's not the best time to call. I mean, real estate agents do a lot more than that.
I understand that. So when is the best time for buyers to start talking to an agent in their home buying process?
Honestly, as soon as they have as soon as they begin thinking that they might want to buy, that's the ideal time to invite an agent or a realtor or us into that conversation. It's the conversations need to happen before the search. You know, so often buyers jump right into the viewing the homes, and there's so many steps that they've skipped. They've made decisions based on impartial information. Gotcha. And so the ideal thing is to sit down with that agent and let's talk about what your lifestyle look like. Mm-hmm. You know, what does your budget look like? Getting you connected with a lender if you don't have a lender. Imagining what life is like. Tell somebody at home you're interested in a 4-bedroom, 2-bath home. Well, that doesn't tell us what your style is like. That doesn't tell us how you're going to use that house. It doesn't tell us how long you plan to be in that house. And all those are factors that can help us speed that process along of helping you find the right house faster and making sure we don't have hiccups. Sure. You know, because nothing's more frustrating than finding the perfect house for a buyer, and then they haven't done everything they needed to do to put in the offer, and are in a position to win the offer, and they lose out on this house that they fell in love with.
Sure.
Do that work up front. It makes that process so much smoother later.
So what I'm hearing you say is buyers should sit down and go through a buyer's consultation because they fully understand all the costs that are going to be involved in the home buying process, and understanding all the terms that they're going to get thrown at them once they start shopping for a home.
Absolutely.
And having a clear understanding of their purchase power, right? Because you don't want to start looking at $500,000 homes and realize you can only get in a $350,000 because it wouldn't be. It wouldn't meet those expectations after looking at those higher prices.
Or even that they qualify for $500,000, but they don't want that budget that a $500,000. They could take that loan out, but they don't want that monthly payment.
Sure.
You know, they've got the capacity and the ability to do it. But it's also finding about what's it like in the market right now. What's the competition level? You know, how do we go in? You know, when we have fewer properties and more buyers, there's buyers competing for the same houses, and they all want the best looking houses at the best price, and you might find yourself in multiple offer situations. Well, how do you strategically put your offer together in such a way that yours stands out above the rest? You know, and so much of that goes back to those first conversations that we have.
Yeah, setting expectations.
Setting expectations
what I'm hearing you say is so you clearly understand.
Well, and preparing you so that you can make quick decisions.
Yeah.
You know, one of the worst things in a really competitive market is you're meeting with a buyer and you're at the house. They love the house, but they want to sleep on it. Mm-hmm. And then the next day they're ready to put an offer in, and that property's already under contract.
Yeah.
You know, not every market's moving that fast, but those are the reasons you want to sit down and know, hey, is this a more of a buyer's market where I've got more leverage in negotiations? Am I able to ask more of the seller? Or is this more of a seller's market where I need to be coming to the table with my best offer right out of the gate?
Sure.
And that changes with time.
Sure. So we talked a lot about the market knowledge and the strategy before you search for the home and go out and see homes. What else is it that your buyer's agent does for you as you go through that contract deal? You know, there's negotiations that have to take place.
Sure.
Risk management. Explain more about that and what that would mean for a buyer putting their offers in.
Even before we get to that point, you know, I want to add that we have access to better tools than the consumer does. Yeah. And so you go online to any number of property search websites, they've got limited things that they can search. Whereas through our MLSs that we have access to, we can really narrow things down. You hate white kitchens, I can make sure you never see a white kitchen. You can't do that anyplace else. So we can get you that right property faster. But yeah, negotiations, you mentioned that is definitely one of the key things, the most valuable things that a good agent brings to the table. I know you've been doing this for 10 years, I've been doing this 16 years, which, by the way, I'm Trey Hunt. This is Susan Oliver.
Yep.
Together we're Hunt Home Group, serving the Northeast Metro Atlanta area. Guys, we're calling this real estate for real people. So hope you'll keep tuning in. But back to negotiations. So when it comes to negotiations, buyers have this kind of narrow perspective of what makes a good offer, and they think it's just price. You know, it's just higher price, lower price, and there's so much more than that. You know, what's the closing date? What's the earnest money? The different contingencies around the appraisal or around the financing. There's a lot of elements to a contract, and all of those are negotiation points. And so a good agent that sees that whole picture, they may be able to help you give the seller more of what they want over here that you don't care about. You're okay giving this, but you're able to get more of what you want over here, having given that. But without that full picture, you don't have that advantage. A good agent knows their contracts better than anybody else.
Yes, they do.
And that's a serious way that we protect our clients in particular, because that's something we stay very up to date on, is understanding our contracts, how they work, how they play together. And I would say that we're often able to leverage our knowledge of contracts to take advantage of a lesser trained agent that's out there.
I'm not saying that. He is saying that. I'm not saying that.
So,
understand, we work really hard for you as our buyer because of our knowledge with those contracts.
as our client.
And our clients.
Because it's really surprising how often that when we're on the listing side, we get offers from other agents that are missing things, that have gaps, that are poorly written, and really don't do a good job of protecting their client.
It's a disservice to their buyer.
It really is, and that's part of the risk management that you talked about. That's another great value that a buyer's agent brings is helping you mitigate risk, because you're putting up your hard-earned money. You're putting up your earnest money. You're paying for appraisals. You're paying for inspections. A deal falls apart at the last minute because of a mistake that was made, because of a disagreement, because somebody didn't understand what the contract actually said. That's money out of your pocket that you don't get back. And so, you know, that's usually the top priority for me. And I think it would be the same for any good agent, is protect your client's money. So that risk management's a really key part.
Absolutely. One of the other things that comes to mind as we're talking about how we show up for our buyers when we're representing them is, you know, problem solving. There are issues that come up that's outside of our buyer's control, possibly outside of the seller's control, and we're there to navigate that and help take care of the navigation to the resolution, or provide you the resources to take care of the problems that show up. So, you know, what specifically could you think of that would relate to a lot of people that would be considering making a purchase on a home?
Well, I can come up with several examples right off the top of my head, and I think that one of the things that as an industry that we've done really poorly is educating buyers and sellers what all we do for them as agents. Because there's so much that we do behind the scenes. For example, just talking about problem solving, there's a title issue. You know, we've gone in and the attorney is doing the research on the title. They come across an issue. Very often we work with them to get that resolved, and the client never knew it was an issue.
Sure.
It didn't prevent it, but there was a hiccup. There was something that had to be done. There was a quitclaim deed that needed to be secured. There was a correction that needed to be made on a previous deed that had a misspelling. But then we run into other problems too. You know, obviously after inspection, we find issues with properties. Things happen to a property after the inspection. I can think of 2 closings that the morning of the closing went out to visit the property for the buyer. In one case, the property had been broken into. They'd stolen all the appliances, had tried to pull the fans out of the ceiling, had done major damage to the back door of the property. It was fine the day before, but somebody had broken in that night. And it's a problem. And when we were able to get that fixed, we were able to make that the closing. Had to delay just a few days for us to get crews out, make the repairs, replace the appliances. But we handled that for them. Another case, showed up the morning of closing just to check the property before going to the closing table. Always want to do that as close to closing as possible, because once you buy that property, any issues or problem, they're yours.
Yeah.
You know? Georgia's a buyer beware state. You're buying every property as is that day of closing. And I showed up to the house, and there's water running out the front door. They had a pipe burst overnight, and so there was damage. You know, all the cabinets had to be replaced in the kitchen. All the hardwood floors had to be replaced. They had to replace the first 4 feet of the drywall, and that one took us a little bit longer. That delayed closing by a couple of months, but fortunately for that investor, that client was an investor, and a 2-month delay wasn't a problem for them. But those are things that were outside the buyer's control, outside of the seller's control, but we had to come up with solutions for them.
Absolutely, things happen.
And there's an infinite number of other things that could happen besides that. But you know, after combined 26 years in the business, we've seen a lot and know how to handle those things.
Absolutely. So to summarize then, you know, as we're talking about this, it's definitely, as you guys can tell, a lot more than just unlocking the door and showing houses. Look at this beautiful archway, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of different things that realtors do to show up to service their buyers.
That's funny you say it, because nobody needs us to tell them that this is the kitchen.
Yeah.
You know, what other room would there be a stove in?
A stove
right?
and a refrigerator and a dishwasher.
Yeah, we're not Vanna White, right? So.
Yeah. We'll be doing another show coming up about like red flags for buyers, but that's another episode to show up down the line, something else. But
hit that subscribe button, because we're going to continue putting out content like this, and certainly want to help you guys make better real estate decisions throughout Metro Atlanta. Again, I'm Trey. This is Susan with the Hunt Home Group, and please stay tuned. Love to see you in the next video.
Not long